All right, everybody, with our next episode is a rock star here on the Mass Media Podcast Summit. I'm so honored to have this guy. Our next speaker hosts a top charting podcast, The Driven Entrepreneur, and is a master trainer of NLP. If you don't know what that means, that's neuro-linguistic programming, not non-performing notes or anything like that, like we often see in my normal neck of the woods, but NLP. He's appeared on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox Television, speaks at places like the Harvard Club, NASDAQ, and the United States Air Force Academy. He's an avid motorcycle rider, church leader, rock climber, father, and a husband. So we are honored to have the man, the myth, the legend, welcome to the Mass Media Podcast, Mr. Matt Brauning, everybody.
Hey, Scott, it never tires to hear the applause, fake or unfake, real. I love it. Thanks for having me on. Very excited to be with Mass Media Summit. This is a special time because, if you're watching this, you're going through this 3-day really training all about how to grow your business, how to grow, whether it's your podcast or in general, using media to grow things. And today I love, I got my start speaking at financial seminars on nothing on finance. I always spoke on mindset. And I said, hey, mine is like the cherry on top. It's the little piece that makes all the other pieces work. Every mass media strategy you've been hearing and are going to continue to hear and learn this entire weekend is phenomenal and they work, but it's the mind piece that puts them together. Are we aligned to win? And I think it's such a simple question. Is your mind aligned to win in life and in business? And anyone, that has, a brain inside their head can tell you that part of my mind probably is aligned to win, but part of my mind usually is whether maybe I'm scared to do something, I'm scared to get success, maybe I've sabotaged myself. Maybe you relate to procrastinating sometimes. Maybe, it's like I can do all these great things from marketing, but then when it comes to my taxes, I don't know why I'm hiding in a hole. I don't know what it is, but I've never met a successful person or a person dreaming of becoming better and greater that didn't have something in their mind, in their subconscious mind, to align. So the purpose today together is to find that hidden piece inside you that's relative and connected to you and help to get that aligned with this thing that we call neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. So let's just jump right in if we can here. Couple quick preframes. Number one is, engage and look, you're going on this live. So, hey, jump in and ask questions and get in the chat, and really get your hands dirty. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down. Tell me when you love me. Tell me when you hate me. Tell me, your stories and examples. With a web training like this, engaging is so important to keep you awake, but that should be pretty easy because you're used to that. Expect to be a little overloaded. We have a lot to teach in a short time to do it. So expect just a little bit, you're not going to remember every single moment, but luckily, I don't know if we have archives or how you're going to be able to go through this. When I go through a training, whether it's live or web like this, I think if I can take away one thing to remember, that is already going to pay for the entire experience. So if you can just learn one thing from it, what's that one thing? So do expect to be overloaded. And the last one is the blender. And I want to tell you this real quick. I think this is a story about getting value from things. I bought a really expensive blender one day called a Vitamix, $400 blender. And when I came home from the blender store and I spent my $400, the question that I always had to ask myself is, was the blender worth the $400?
Yes.
Scott says, of course it was.
I've got one too.
and how good is your Vitamix? Do you love it? I love mine, but I'll ask you a question though. When you pay the $400, and that's what it was at the time, and when I take the blender home, is it worth $400 in that moment? Yes or no? I think the answer is no, because at that point it's a $400 paperweight on my counter. But then I go to Whole Foods or Whole Paycheck or whatever you want to call it, and I get all my organic fruits and veggies and kale and young coconuts and acai berries or whatever, you get when you're a healthy nerd. And, and when you bring all that home and you have your bags of groceries, is it worth it? Not yet. What do you have to do to make the blender worth $400? You got to use it. See, if it can reverse your age, if you can lose the weight, if you can get healthy with it, what's that worth? I mean, 10, 100, 1,000-fold what you paid for the blender. So it's just a quick little pre-frame, understanding that value comes from the use of the information, not the information itself. So I pray that you would take at least one thing from today and use it and apply it in daily life. Agreed? Go in the chat and tell me agreed. Let's say yes. Just write the word agreed or yes or amen, yes, or I'm doing it. And if you put that in, I want to know that you're in. Awesome. Very cool. Okay. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. We're in. So the next question is, what is NLP before we really get into this whole thing? If you've heard of NLP, I don't know how you heard about it. Maybe, who knows? So I'm just going to tell you from the ground up and pretend that no one's ever heard of it. I hope that's okay. Is that okay? All right. Sounds good. So what is NLP? Neuro-linguistic programming. Some people call it the lost user manual for the mind. That's a fun word, isn't it? The lost user manual for the mind. It's like, we know if you're a parent, I have a 8-year-old son named Val. He's fun and brilliant and stubborn and creative and kooky, and he's so many things. But the one thing I never got was a user manual. So I'm messing things up all the time. I do some things well, some things not. In our brains up here, we never got a user manual for them. So how do we know how we're supposed to use these to be effective? There's certainly humans in history who have been very effective with their results, whether it's growing a business or being a parent or being healthy and fit, or their spiritual practice, whatever is success to you. But there's also a lot of people who just can't seem to get it together. It's this constant struggle. So think of NLP as that user manual that you can just flip through, and it's a catalog of techniques and mindsets and language patterns to use to get the results you want. The user manual for your brain. Another definition of NLP that's equally important is the study of subjective experience. Subjective, simple word, what it means is subject to whoever's observing it. So I'll give you a quick example. There's objective experience and subjective experience. Objectively, that's something we all agree on together. So like objectively, we could all agree, hey, we're on this mass media summit conference, right? We can all agree that's happening right now. But subjective, well, that's interesting, because what's the experience that each one of you are having? One person says, best thing I've ever done. It's amazing. It's life-changing. I can't believe it. Someone else goes, oh, I've heard that before. I've heard this before. Oh, it's the same. And neither one of those are true, and neither one of those are a lie. What they are is the subjective experience of what someone's having. If I showed you, this pen, I said, hey, this is a pretty cool pen, right? Well, objectively, we all agree it's a pen. Subjectively, is it big or is it small? Is it cheap or is it expensive? Well, this is probably $6, $7 for this pen, maybe something like that. Some people might say that's very expensive for a pen if you're used to getting cheap big ones. If you have Mont Blancs coming out your ears, you might say that's a cheap pen. I'd never use it. Subjective experience, in my estimation, is everything. There's nothing more important. If you can master why you create the subjective experience you create in business and in life, you can master your life. If you're not the master of your own subjective experience, you'll find that life situations control you. Your business outcomes control you. The IRS controls you. If clients are buying or not buying, it's because of them, and you can't do a thing about it. When you take charge of your subjective experience of something, that's taking charge of your experience, that's taking charge of your results. So to me, that's why NLP is so important and really what it is. Last quick definition, we'll move on. It's called how to use the language of the mind to consistently achieve our desired outcomes. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro for mind, linguistic, fancy word for language, and programming, what that refers to is the programs that our brains are running behind the scenes. So think of it as the language of your mind that has its own language, its own pattern. Like if you've ever known someone in your life who's like a computer programmer, you know that there's different computer program languages. And these different languages work with different types of systems. The language we're used to using are just words or, ASL, maybe you're doing some sign language, and the language of facial expressions, language of tonalities, the language of body language. That's the language we're used to. But internally, when you're not thinking about what you're thinking about, think about that. When you're not thinking about what you're thinking about and trying to think about it, that's the language your mind uses. And our minds can get in the way and prevent us from doing what we want, or our minds can make the way for us. The classic example would be, think of a phobia. If you know someone or you yourself have a phobia, an irrational fear of a stimulus, and it's irrational, and that you're going to be just safe when you go to that window in the hotel, and what's the big deal? And consciously, cognitively, everything's fine. But there's that fear deep in the back of your mind. That's the language of your mind. Your mind is actually creating a scene of a phobic scene, and it's looping it over and over again, probably increasing in intensity. Funny stuff, right? So what does a phobia have to do with mass media? What does a phobia have to do with a podcast? Everything. Because a phobia is a good example of someone's internal mind kind of running the show and doing what you don't need to do anymore. You know, maybe when you were a kid and your sister threw a snake on you, or probably your brother, I suppose. But let's just pretend, you know, it's women's empowerment, men's empowerment, everyone's empowered. So let's say your sister throws a snake on you and you're 4 years old and you freak out. Well, you needed the phobia at 4 because that was really terrifying. But at 40, you probably don't need that phobia anymore to keep you safe from snakes. You can use your intelligence to keep you safe. You know not to step on them and so forth. So a phobic response is just that example of your mind running the show, even though it no longer is needed anymore. So we want to use this NLP thing. We'll break down a few patterns of how to do it to get control of our mind, to get control of this system of thinking that is you in every area. And when you get this, you'll watch your business take off. You watch sales increase. You watch customers saying yes more often because they like you and because you're congruent with what you're offering and what you're saying. You'll find yourself with more media opportunities. You'll find yourself doing things with ease more often. You'll find one of the things I see a lot with my clients who take our NLP courses and programs is, you know, they start to schedule things with more margin. They'll not running late to things all the time. Like there's so many changes can happen when you just start taking control of that system. So let's move on. The best way to explain NLP really to you is with this story. So there are 3 priests fishing. And this isn't actual 3 priests. These are just 3 guys fishing, but it's the closest thing I could find on Google. But imagine 3 priests go fishing. 2 of them are older, and they've been around for a long time. One of them is brand new, just got ordained. And as they're out fishing, and they're talking about life and everything, it comes lunchtime, and 2 of the older priests, you know, they lean to each other and say, hey, you know, we should probably go back to shore, get some of our sandwiches. You know, and they left a cooler on the shore because it was a little boat. And the other older priest said, you know, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's go back and get our sandwiches. And as the young priest grabs the oars, he was about to put them in the water to row the boat back to shore. The older priest looks at him and says, oh, don't worry about that. We'll just walk. So he stands up, he puts one leg out, and he walks across the water. And the older priest, the other one, goes, oh, I should have thought of that. So he stands up and he walks across the water. Both of the older priests are on the shore now, breaking open the cooler and digging into the sandwiches. The young priest is like befuddled. He can't believe it. Oh my gosh, it's true. I've read the story. Some of you have heard this story. It's a very famous story. If they can do it, I can do it. The faith of mustard seed. If Peter walked, Jesus walked, I can walk. Oh my gosh, this is real. This is a miracle. This is happening right now. This is all of his training, all of his moments as a little boy, all culminating in this moment. Does he have faith? And he steps up. And he steps out, boosh, and he falls under the water. And as he's treading water, soaking wet, reevaluating his entire life's purpose, he can't figure out where he went wrong. One priest looks to the other and says, do you think we should have told him where some of the tree stumps are? And
awesome story.
Tree stumps. You know, sometimes life isn't really about magic and miracles. Sometimes it is. But sometimes what looks like a miracle to someone else is really just the other person knowing where the stumps are. And the best way I can tell you what NLP is for you and what we're going to attempt to teach over the next 45 minutes or so is I want to show you where some of the stumps are in your unconscious mind, in your life, and how to align those things. So other people will say, what did you do? How did you change so fast? Why is this so easy? And you're like, I don't know. I took Matt Brauning's NLP thing that I got from Scott Carson's Mass Media Summit. It was a weird roundabout way to change my life, but my life changed. That's what we do. So real quick, who's me? You know, he introduced me already, so I'm not going to take much time. I'm a workshop facilitator and coach. I've sold a lot of money from the platform, and so stage speaking, so I love speaking. I'm a keynote speaker. I speak at Fortune 100 companies. I'm a writer for Forbes, top charting podcast, a driven entrepreneur. So I do podcasting. That's how Scott and I connected, and that's how I know all these lovely people. I'm also a national radio show host, syndicated on 16 stations, coast to coast. I'm also a church leader. My wife and I are really heavily involved in volunteer ministry with our son. And we, so you catch me maybe preaching 1 or 2 times a month at my church campus. We run a lot of discipleship groups and, young couples. We do young couples discipleship when they're thinking about getting married. So it's just a huge give back. And it's a place where my wife and I, Lola, we find purpose in that. I love business, but I love serving God. And that's my story. I'm also a husband, a father, as I mentioned, and a rock climber. I love climbing. Probably the most important thing, though, above all that, is I'm a big pro wrestling fan. Yep. The Rock, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, you name it, I was there. From the 80s to today, I'm a huge nerdy fan. And no one guesses it because I'm pretty cool on the surface, but that's what I love. You learn a lot about business, a lot about speaking, and a lot about personal development, shockingly, when you follow pro wrestling. So we'll see if we tie into a story. I just wanted you to know that I'm not Superman. I'm just a wrestling fan. That's who I am. These are some of the places that I speak at and I share my message. There's a bunch more than that. We actually just signed a contract to put on a leadership event with the U.S. Air Force Academy this coming July. It's a very, very exciting time. Things are on the way up and people want to know this information. People want the world to become a better place. And that's where you and I come in. That's what we're doing. You can always catch me somewhere on TV. I when a book comes out or something, or I launch a new show, I'm always traveling around, again, coast to coast, going wherever I want to be at, wherever they want me to have. I love speaking and sharing a message on any media. So, you talk about mass media. I do the podcast. In fact, here's a couple quick clips of my podcast. The Driven Entrepreneur. There's me in the charts, beating Tony Robbins, beating JLD. Brendan Burchard, anyone heard of him? Tim Ferriss, Ty Lopez, Pat Flynn, Amy Porterfield, Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you've ever heard any of these people, but they all have one thing in common. At one point, I've beat all of them in the charts. Not every day, but often enough to take a screenshot and make it notable. The podcast has been a top charted podcast for a year and a half now, pretty consistently. iTunes changed around a lot of their charting. So now I'm in the entrepreneurship category, which is brand new, usually top charting in there somewhere. And it's also new podcasts I've launched have been new and noteworthy. It's a ton of fun. I love podcasting. There's the show, The Driven Entrepreneur. So if you're a podcast listener, subscriber, hey, feel free to subscribe. It's free. I do an episode every single week. Sometimes I do teaching. I just wrapped up a 6-part series called, what was the series called? 6-part series called What's Real Happiness? Very in-depth kind of psychological profile of happiness. A lot of fun, and I think you'll learn a ton. And then I also have great entrepreneur guests on all the time. Scott's been on, and probably half the teachers you'll see during the mass media summit have been on as well. All right. So we need to align this thing called your subconscious mind. Let's talk about NLP and really alignment for success. First off, what's a subconscious mind? What's a conscious mind? Well, I like to think of it like this. Imagine you're sailing a pirate ship. And I like pirate ships because they're cooler than regular ships. But imagine you're sailing a pirate ship and, you have a captain and you have the crew. And the captain represents your conscious mind. But the crew, they represent your unconscious. Now, I got a question for you. If the captain barks an order and says, turn starboard or whatever direction I don't sail, so I don't know, but whatever direction it is the ship going to automatically turn? Yes or no? It's probably going to wait. It's probably not going to do a thing when the captain barks an order. Because what has to happen? The captain says turn, and the crew has to get involved. The crew has to batten the hatches and trim the sails and swab the deck and walk the plank. It's a pirate ship, obviously. So, they do all that piratey stuff. The crew has to get involved and make the work and make the ship turn. But let me ask you another question, though. What happens at the extreme when the crew loses respect for the captain? Mutiny, right? They throw the captain overboard. You've been making bad decisions far too long. You're done. Oh my gosh, what do we do now? Well, a lot of us have a business that runs with mutiny. It runs where the unconscious mind wants one thing and the conscious mind wants another. Imagine the captain says, we want to go that way, turn straight ahead. But the crew goes, Captain, last time we went down that sea channel, we got hurt. What if the captain says, let's get in a great relationship? We deserve a great relationship. We deserve to be loved. Let's start that now. And the crew goes, yeah, but, they cheated on us and I just don't feel safe if I love. See, consciously, you feel like you've gotten over it. Consciously, you want something positive. But unconsciously, the crew wants to protect us from what has happened before. Maybe the captain says, let's go get healthy and fit and get six-pack abs. Yeah. But the crew goes, broccoli tastes disgusting. And I don't want to look like an idiot when I'm in the gym. And so the crew has these patterns, these filters. The captain doesn't have them. The captain just wants what the captain wants. The captain says, let's go make a bunch of money and have a successful business. And the crew goes, but I don't want to become a slimy salesman. If I make a lot of money, that means I'm bad people, right? That's one of the beliefs we'll have, is that if you're wealthy, that means you're bad. Consciously, that's stupid. We know that you can do a lot of good with money, but there's stories. Or maybe it's something you saw when you were 5 years old. You watch your mom and dad fight over a checkbook and you're 5, and you think to your little 5-year-old self, you know what? If money makes mom and dad fight, I don't want to have anything to do with money. And then all of a sudden, here we are, 40, 45 years old, 50, 80, whatever age, and going consciously, I want to make money. I don't know why my business isn't profitable. I've been a struggling entrepreneur for 10 years. And I've seen a lot of people over the years that come to seminars and workshops that have just not quite gotten it yet. And it's every time the challenge is the crew is not aligned. So our job is to get your captain and your crew back into rapport with each other, back into rapport. So when the captain barks an order and says, let's get wealthy and let's make our business successful, the crew just goes, aye, captain, let's do it. And you get to work on it. So in my estimation, there's 3 principles that I want to share with you about aligning your mind to make sure you win. And before I get into the principles, I want to share, of course, why it's been so important, because I was my first customer. I'm my first person I mentored. My story is pretty simple. I started off, these are actual real pictures of my dream home that I lived in several years ago in Orange County, California. I had a full bar downstairs I built, a pool with lights that change colors, lived on the house on the hill. I'm living my best life now. I really am. And then I made a decision. To chase what I believe, and it still is, my dream, my purpose, my passion, my destiny. And it sounds a little intense, and it was. I saw Tony Robbins on stage one day. Tony, the guy with the big hands, big head, big teeth, huge head. It's so big. Don't take that out of context, because I love Tony to pieces, but my goodness, when you're face to face with that man, he is a giant. And I saw him working with people and people change their patterns like that. And at first I thought that's impossible. But then I watched, and I was in Tony's community. I went to many seminars and workshops. I joined Tony Robbins' high-end platinum partnership mastermind community. It was $65,000 at the time. Plus you paid for trips throughout the year. So it was about $100,000 to join this thing. And it was one of the best years of my life. But throughout that year, what I realized was one simple truth, that this stuff wasn't making me happy. What really made me happy is when I could help make a difference in someone's life, when I could help change a pattern, when I could help inspire someone to transformation and to living a better version of where they were. The problem is I didn't know how to do that for a living, so I was in the real estate business. And I decided one day, I'm like, you know what? I'm closing my doors. I closed my real estate company overnight. Not because it was not successful, because I didn't have any passion for it anymore, so I just stopped. And I went after my full-time passion, which was being, are you ready for this? A life coach. Oh yeah, that was it. Full-time life coach. Put in the chat there, if you relate at any point to even part of this, of wanting to make a difference, of knowing that, that's important to you, making a difference in someone's life, and that's more important than money. Give me a yes in the chat if that's you. I just want to know. Okay, yep. See, that's so cool. And I went through this problem where I thought for a year and a half, I believed that I had to just make a difference in someone's life, and I had nothing to do with money. So what happened is I went from this. Oh, that was it. Sorry. My old presentation, I used to have a picture of the trailer that I moved into. So just imagine, I moved into my friend's trailer in his driveway. Not my trailer, not my driveway, but I lived in a trailer for many months because I lost my house. The pool turned green. I short sold the house. I wasn't making any money. In nearly 2 years life coaching, I made $900. Not $900 a week, not $900 per client, $900 period. And I had lost everything. And it was a scary place to be. It's scary because I'm sitting here going, God, I know I'm supposed to be doing this for a living, but it's not working. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to give it up and go chase the almighty dollar again? Or am I supposed to keep on this track because it's going to turn around? Well, that brought me eventually to Australia. I had a chance to go speak on stage in Australia in front of 400 people. I had put on a couple events before that were big successes. You know, I had 6 people show up at my first seminar, including my parents. Not a huge success, but I tried and I made no money from it. I wasn't making a difference, but I had this chance. I'm sitting in my friend's trailer and ding, chime goes off on my email. And because I still had an email. Obviously, it was a Mac. I'm not a barbarian, right? Even though I lost everything, I still have my old Mac laptop. And because let's be honest, you can't get down to a PC. No matter what happens, you got to at least have an Apple. At least that's my thought. So the chime goes off, and it was from a friend of mine I had met through Tony Robbins over in Australia. And he said, hey, because I had emailed a while back saying, hey, I'm a speaker now. Maybe I could come out and speak. And he emailed back and said, yeah, we'll test you out as a speaker. And I went, oh my gosh, this is my chance. So I borrow all the money for a plane ticket. I get out to Australia and I land. Imagine this. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, not Melbourne, Melbourne. Talk to any Aussie. And I'm in Melbourne, Australia. I'm wandering around downtown by, where the conference is. I'm supposed to speak on the 4th day, and this is day 1 of the event. There are plenty of other speakers. I'm dead broke. I go to the ATM, put my card in to get money so I can figure out where to stay that night. Negative $250 in my business bank account. I try my personal card. Maybe I have a little something there. Negative $200 in my personal account. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. I'm negative $450. I have no credit any longer because I let everything go. And I have $40 Australian in my pocket in cash. That's all I have to my name. I'm wandering around. I thought, well, I should stay somewhere. So I see a sign for a hostel. It says $33 a bed. And I go, well, it's better than nothing. So I walk in and I say, I guess and I was hoping, I don't know what I was going to do night 2, but I figured I'd go to the conference. Maybe I'd meet someone else and crash with them. Who knows? But I went to the lady. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I said, I'll take a bed. And she says, great, that'll be $53, mate, or however she talks. And I can only make fun of Australians because I love them so much. And I spent so much time there after this, but you'll hear that another time. And she said $53. And I went, what? And I checked my pocket, $40. And I said, I'm sorry, not that it's a big deal, but I thought it was 33. I read that on the sign. And she said, oh, no problem, mate. It's a $20 key deposit. You'll get it back when you check out. And I'm sorry, my accents don't get any better. This is the top of the best. And I had to walk out and say, no, it's okay. I can't do it. I can't afford a $20 key deposit. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I went and got Chinese food because it was $7. It was hot, lots of it. I figured like the MSG would keep me warm at night, or if I had to sleep outside. I don't know what was going to happen, but I knew I had to do something. And I went to that seminar and I was dead broke. But the one thing I could control, the one thing I knew, and even in the pit, in the middle of having nothing, and I didn't know where I was going to sleep that night, but I get up on stage and I look out at 400 people and I make the decision. You're in charge of your unconscious mind. No one else is. And I made the choice right then and there to be successful. I made the choice to live my values. I made the choice to make an impact in the people's lives. And I made a choice to be an inspiring speaker. And I shared, and they wanted me to offer a coaching program, a training program. And I did. It was our NLP certification program. And man, I'll never forget staring out at 400 people's faces because, the principles I used are exactly years and years later, the exact same thing I want to teach you today. So you can be aligning your unconscious mind to win no matter your circumstance. So there's 3 principles that I had to figure out. Principle number 1, and if you're taking notes, I'd really highly encourage you, grab one of these things here. That's the paper rustling. If you're listening, if you're watching, get a notepad. And for me, when I take notes on a whole page. So if I say something or there's something in here, write it on a whole page, write like one bumper sticker out, and I promise you'll remember it a lot easier if you do it that way. So the first principle, number 1, is too comfortable. people get too comfortable. You know, say this. So let's try this. You know, again, hopefully you're not driving a car or anything, that would be terrible. But assuming you're sitting watching this somewhere and it's safe to do so, put your hands up in the air. Come on, put your hands up. Look, no one's going to see. It's fine. Put your hands in the air. Good. And now wave them like you just don't care. Just kidding. I just wanted to, I like doing that with live rooms. It's kind of fun. But well, put your hands in the air. And then on the count of 3, just play along with me, especially if you've never played this game before. On the count of 3, fold your arms. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. All right. Open your hands. Right. Raise them up again and fold them again. 1, 2, 3, fold. Good. One more time. Arms up and 1, 2, 3, fold them. Excellent. Now keep them there for a moment. And assuming that you haven't played this game before and you really follow the directions, did you notice that most likely you cross your arms the same way every time? Right? It's like, this is how you cross your arms. When you're not thinking about it, this is how you fold your arms. Now try something funny. Try this. Try folding your arms the other way. Reverse the process. Is that not weird? I mean, that's weird, right? How many of you feel uncomfortable? You don't type because you can't, because your arms are folded. That's fine. But isn't that weird, right? It's backwards. Now go back to how it was before. Fold them the right way again. Home sweet home. Doesn't this feel good? Because one of the biggest problems we have in life really is that your life begins where your comfort zone ends. When you stay in a comfort zone, I'm not talking about just trying new things and, you know, the traditional way we might think about that. But to me, what I found in the world of NLP is that when we're comfortable, that's a sign. Now, what is it a sign of? This isn't going to be some philosophical thing. It's very simple. What science tells us is that when someone feels a feeling of comfortable with something, it means they have a previous experience of it. Does that make sense? In fact, the more you've done something, the more comfortable you are. And this is true for anything. Take anything, try to remember the first time you tried something new, like maybe you're acting or dancing or shooting a gun or running, you know, in a race or something that was brand new to you, you know, picking up a guitar for the first time or musical instrument. And if you think about something that you've done and you've been doing for years, you know, imagine you've been playing guitar for 20 years. Well, now you pick up the guitar and it just feels like what? The most natural, comfortable thing in the world. And you can just play and you can move and you don't even have to look and you don't have to think and you can do anything. That's the feeling of comfortable. And what that tells us is that you've done it a lot before. So why is that so important? Because you can also use comfortable feelings as a indicator. Use it as almost like a low fuel light indicator for a car. You can use comfortable feeling. If you feel really comfortable in business, sometimes it is good to do the same thing over and over again, right? There's certain things we should always be doing like a machine, like, you know, how you do accounting and taxes. That should feel comfortable. But if your messaging or your marketing is like starting to feel stale and you get up and you do the same thing over and over again, it's like, you know, I speak on a lot of live stages. I speak dozens and dozens of times every single year. I produce my own workshops, our own speaker trainings. And like we have a new speaker training coming out this year called Best Speaker Ever. It's a 4-day training and it's new. I've been doing speaker trainings for over 10 years. Why would I do a brand new one? Well, because I've been evolving it. Every year it evolves and changes. So I realized one time I've been doing this old training that was really, really good. But when I got up to present it and to take the audience through the exercises, it felt so comfortable. It was like, I'm no longer nervous. I don't even think about it. And I found myself not even really thinking about it before the event. And then I woke up and went, oh my gosh, this is dangerous. Like if I'm not thinking about it before the event, then there's no way that I'm going to evolve it and make it better and like over deliver for every single person there. You have to get to a place where you're uncomfortable. See, when you're uncomfortable, it's a sign that something's new. And very often the change that you want, the new habit is always going to feel uncomfortable, right? The mistake that we make, and I see so many people do this, is that they make the mistake of believing that if they feel uncomfortable with something, that could be a sign that they shouldn't be doing it. Like it doesn't feel right. Nothing could be further from the truth. If you feel uncomfortable, it's most likely a sign that you are taking a new step, and that's most likely a very good thing. If you hadn't worked out for a long time in life and you went to the gym for the first time, how uncomfortable is that going to be? You're going to be sweating. You don't know what machines do. You're putting your legs in the arm machines and you're like kicking around. And as the comedian Brian Regan said, he's in the gym moving his arms and legs around. And the guy comes up and says, "Hey, buddy, you mind getting out of the painter scaffolding?" And it's like, "Oh, sorry about that. Sorry." It's really uncomfortable to not know what you're doing. And then you sweat. Maybe you throw up and you pass out. That happened to me the first time I went back to the gym. Let me ask you a question, though. Was that a sign that I shouldn't be doing it? Not a chance. If anything, that's a sign that I should press in and do it even more so I can become more regular. So I guess, there's no exercise for this. It's real simple. Get out of your comfort zone. Life begins where your comfort zone ends. Get out and do something new. Decide what's one new thing I can do in my business. What's a new way I can ask for guests on my podcast? What's an advertising, idea that I thought about, but maybe it makes me feel uncomfortable. And there's things I've done in my life. One of them was, talk about mass media, was going on TV. For my entire speaking career, for almost 15 years, I'd never done any television. I'd done some radio, some podcasting. I do a lot of live stages. And I realized that I was becoming a sort of quote unquote big fish in a small pond. When I went into my communities, everyone began to know who I was because I've been speaking for so many years. And I was becoming a big name, in my backyard. And I realized, I'm like, you know what? I'm way too comfortable. So one of the most uncomfortable things I'd ever done in my life is I hired a new mentor, hired a coach, and it was a coach in media. And I went after it. I was like, I'm going to figure out how to show up on television. I want to be on network TV. I want to know how this works. So I began to get myself booked on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and I started touring the country. I put out a new book called The Firebox Principle, 7 Drives that Fuel Every Entrepreneur. That's pretty fun. In fact, look at that. If you're looking, I got one here. That's just for kicks, I guess. But when I came out with this book, I was like, I'm going to do a media tour. I'm going to do a TV tour. And then a little voice in my head said, who are you to do that? Like, that's what real authors do. That's what the New York Times people do. And then I was like, wait a minute. This is so dumb, Matt. What did they have that I don't have? And I looked at a lot of New York Times authors and big name speakers, so to speak, and not knocking anyone by any stretch. But I thought, you know what? I could do that as good or better for sure. And some people I knew I could do better, but the problem is they were famous, I wasn't. And that was all about aligning my mind. I had to make the switch the flip the switch. I guess I switched the flip, but I had to flip the switch in the back of my brain that said, you know what? You're not shallow and uncaring if you become more famous or if you go out on media. If you really have something worthwhile, and I'm talking to you, if you have something worthwhile to share, your people deserve to hear the message. And that means you have to get yourself out as big as you can, as bold as you can. And with that comes being uncomfortable. Got it? All right, good. That's uncomfortable. Principle number 2, solving inner conflict. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when I was running my mortgage business and my real estate business, there was a period of time when I was really, really successful. And I mean, like, pretty successful. I was 25 years old and I owned $5 million in property, and I was making well over $500,000 of personal income every single year. I don't know how that compares to everybody, but in my little world, that was pretty phenomenal. And I was at 25 years old doing that. However, I found myself with this inner conflict, and one of them showed up with what's called success versus freedom. And see if you relate to this, especially as an entrepreneur. I ask entrepreneurs all over the world, and I've done this in every culture, many different countries, many different rooms. What's the number one reason why people start a business? And you know what the overwhelming answer always is? It's not money. It's not success. It's freedom. Freedom or some version of freedom. They want to control their time. They want to be their own boss. They want to not be told what to do. They want to make their own schedule, whatever. Freedom's number one. And it was for me too. All right. Because I worked for someone before, and then I thought, you know what? Forget this. I'm going to do my own thing. So I wanted to have freedom. I wanted to be able to do whatever I wanted to do in my business. And what that meant was I made my own office hours. So I'd show up at 10. And I still do to this day, 40 years old, still show up at 10. But now I show up upstairs into my home office. And I'd show up to the office at 10, and then I would leave early because, hey, I'm the owner. I don't want to be there too much. And I got into snowboarding this year. And I remember first year I ever snowboarded, I snowboarded like once or twice. The next year I went once, but the year after I went like 50 times that year. I just got hooked and I went every weekend. I lived in Southern California at the time. So I went to Mammoth Mountain. I went to Tahoe. Went to Big Bear Mountain. I went all the time. And I had this funny thing happen where the busier I got and the more money we made. But when that happened, I had all the success that I wanted. So imagine for a moment, like success is, look to your right at one wall, if there's a wall in front of you. One wall is success. The other wall is freedom. These are two things you might want, but in order to get them, you have to walk in opposite directions. That is the definition of inner conflict. So when I wanted to be more successful, what did I have to do? I had to turn towards success, and I had to do successful things like and I started showing up to the office more, and I stayed late a little more, and I made more phone calls, and I had more client meetings, and I had team meetings with, the employees. And little by little, what I did is I started getting more successful, and all of a sudden the income rose and assets rose, and I invested in another property, and it was like, hey, I'm getting pretty successful here. But a little voice in my head went, yeah, but you're sacrificing your freedom. And I went, no, freedom. So freedom. So I turned to the wall of freedom and I was like, you know what? Forget that. I'm taking Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. And I went up and went snowboarding all weekend. And then I started cutting back the hours. What do you think happened? Well, my freedom scale went up, but what happened to success? Started going down. And I didn't make as much money because I'm not calling people back and I'm not working the business. And basically what I did, I spent about 3 years in this inner conflict trap where I'd run to freedom and enjoy my freedom as much as I could until the day finally came that all of a sudden what happened? Oh, we're starting to run out of money. Get back to work, produce. And I would turn around and run towards success, and I would call people back, and I would, start marketing and start doing all the things I have to do. And then once I got trapped in success and made more money, then it was like, I got plenty of money. What am I doing? I'm stuck in the office, freedom again. And back and forth we go. If you relate to that story, we need to talk about how to solve inner conflict. What we're talking about is something called your values. I'll stay on this one for a second. Success and freedom are examples of values. What are values? You can jot this down. Values are the things, values do two things. Number one, values tell us how we should spend our time. And as you can tell from my story, if you value success, you should probably spend your time doing things that create success. If you value love and connection in your relationship, you're going to spend time with your significant other and doing loving things. But if you value freedom, well, you're probably going to spend time doing things that are autonomous and you can do your own thing. What if you value honesty? Well, you're going to spend a lot of time telling the truth and you're going to not want to lie. So values do two things. Number one is they tell us how we're going to spend our time. But number two, they also tell us how to feel about how we spent our time afterwards. So remember I talked about honesty? Well, if you value honesty very high and you find yourself in a compromised situation where you're forced to lie, and I found myself in that place. Scott Carson. He would never find himself that place. But I found myself there sometimes in the mortgage business, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, around .com and before the bust and all that stuff. We were doing these loans called stated income loans. And I go, oh, how much do you make? Oh, 18,000. Oh, you mow lawns? Yeah, you could qualify for your fourth stated income non-owner occupied rental property with zero down. Of course you could. And we would lie about the income. And now I don't think I was the only one, but that doesn't make it good. And that doesn't make it right just because the industry was falling that direction. Internally, though, I always felt convicted and I felt this inner conflict because my value of honesty was very high. And everywhere else in life, I found myself, I would say it the way it is. And even in a relationship, it's like, hey, it might hurt someone's feelings, but I'm going to tell you because I want to be honest. I want to be real, But when I went to work, I couldn't do that. Otherwise, I would have had to find a new job. So I was torn because my values said, tell the truth, but my actions didn't always do it. Hence inner conflict. What happens if you have inner conflict? Well, several different things could happen. Number one, you can start procrastinating your goals. What's funny is, let's talk about procrastination for a second. If you've ever procrastinated something, most people say, like, if I said, what's the opposite of procrastination? They'd say, well, motivation, right? I want to get motivated. Look, the truth is nobody needs motivation. You don't need motivation. You think you need motivation. You don't. Maybe you don't have motivation to make cold calls, right, for your business, but think about your favorite food. Maybe it's a glazed donut from Krispy Kreme. If that's your favorite food, I doubt you need motivation to eat a dang donut, right? So motivation is not the problem. It's accessing it. And really the reason why procrastination happens is most often either A, lack of vision, or B, inner conflict. If you're conflicted about something, I want success. So I'm writing this book. So I'm going to make this podcast. So I'm going to get these big guests. So I'm going to commit to this schedule. I'm going to have my Wednesdays and my Tuesdays and my Fridays all taken up with interviews and all, and all the stuff we have to do to be successful. But if your next value is freedom and you know you're giving up your freedom for this, there's a really good chance you'll find yourself setting a goal and then putting it off. And then you set another goal and you push it forward and put it off again. Does anybody relate to this? Probably not you. Certainly not Scott Carson. But maybe you know someone who does this. Maybe you know someone very close to you, very intimately, who does this sometimes. Set a goal and then push it back and procrastinate it because maybe we're a little scared of what's going to happen when we do it. Most likely, it's inner conflict. It's because, so ask yourself this question. If I achieve this goal, goal A, what will happen? And you're probably going to get a bunch of positive answers. Oh, I'll make more money and I'll make an impact in the world and it'll be great and I'll share my message and all these wonderful things. But now ask the next question. If I get this goal, what will happen that I don't want? What could happen that I might not enjoy? And you'll start to say things like, well, I mean, like I was really blessed. My book became really successful. It was a bestseller in 9 categories, #1 international bestseller. And I went on tour and I went and did speaking gigs tours. I did book signings. I did 10 different TV shows all over the place. And one of the consequences of that, I was all excited about it and it was very good. I'm very happy I chose that. But one of the negative consequences was I was forced to be on the road about 3 times more than I was before. I was flying out all the time. And I didn't see my wife and son as much. And we had just moved to a new state within the last month. I think we moved right when it started. So my son started getting some low-level anxiety. And a lot of it was we were in a new place, but also dad's gone all the time. And when am I going to come back? And so I'm not proud of that, right? But I share that story. I think it's really important. He's doing well now. We've stabilized. We've changed things. It was about a year ago. But it took being home. So I made the choice that my goals have to be aligned with my values. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes because we have to consistently change it up. So think about, are my goals aligned with all my values? Yes or no? Hopefully that'll help you a little bit. It certainly helped me. Because now if I have a goal to make another $1 million and the way to do that is to go on the road and be in a hotel for 30 days straight, my answer is no. I don't care how much money it is. My answer is no. I don't go on the road for straight. I go and we have a very specific system that works for my family. I'll go 5 days at a time at the very most every couple of months, maybe once a quarter. And I'll go for a couple of days and overnight to go speak. And I do that all the time now. But it works in our values because it works in the family. But when I was gone too long on a trip, it reversed things and it hit that inner conflict piece. So again, I like to tell stories, especially personal stories, because I want you to know that this is not just for you. I eat my own cooking. These are things that I'm constantly developing my own mindset. And I've been teaching this stuff for 15 years, but you never stop developing. All right. Excuse me. Oh, look at that. Perfect time to share. Now, the cool thing is I have nothing to sell you today, but I still want to sell you on the idea of learning NLP as deep as you can, because I think it just, if the world learned NLP, it would be a better place. If every human understood the framework of what we're talking about today, it really would make things so much better, make business a lot better and everything. This is one of my students, James Key. Dr. James Key is an NLP grad, and he wanted to put on workshops and speak, and he did. He put on his first 7 workshops. He said, after joining Matt, I scheduled and then sold out my first 3 workshops. Yay! I've now done 7 workshops, generated over 6 figures in sales, and broke through my first 50 paying clients. That's pretty cool. And here's a guy, for 20 years, he was a story professor, a professor of rhetoric at the university. And he wanted to put on paid workshops where people would pay to learn story, not college students. So I said, let's go entrepreneurs. And we worked together to get his workshops together, and he was thriving through it. It's really exciting to see people really use and apply NLP, linguistics, and language so he did it with storytelling. He did it with workshops. Ooh, do I have a bonus secret? I think I do. Ooh, look at this. And here's an exciting thing. I haven't given this presentation in quite a while. So Scott, legitimately, I don't know what's coming next. But I do know there's a bonus secret that is the third secret I want to share with you. And it involves a guy apparently holding a lot of money over his head. So it's probably about financial success. Are you ready for this? Go in the chat and tell me yes if you're ready for the bonus secret. Who's ready? Say I or yes. Yes, 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 yes. Very good. And don't worry, I'm not going to leave you. We have a few more minutes together with this bonus secret, and I'm not going to leave you without anywhere to go. I want to give you a very, very special gift of a way that you can dive into NLP in a deeper, congruent, and exciting way. So stick tight, hang tight, and I'm going to share that with you in a moment. The bonus secret is what we learned from Warren Buffett about financial mindset and aligning your mind to win. Warren Buffett said this: invest in as much of yourself as you can. You are your own biggest asset by far. And the guy knows what he's talking about. Look, he may have been bumped down from the second wealthiest man in the world after Jeff Bezos and a Prince or something started coming up, but he's going to be up there till the day he goes as one of the wealthiest men and the most successful investors in the entire world. And he said the best investment is you. When it comes to personal development, business development's easy. It's like, hey, I put money into my business, I hire a consultant, I get coaching, I learn, and I'm going to make money from it. Personal development's another animal. It's a lot more like health and fitness and emotional fitness. When you invest in yourself emotionally, mentally, personal development-wise, you always reap a return. But you reap a return that's intangible. It can convert to money and to clients or to business but how do you put a monetary value on becoming a better version that you were yesterday and then attracting a better relationship and the one you deserve to be in? That you decide that you owe it to yourself because you feel good enough about yourself to wake up and go to the gym or go buy the organic, healthy food. And, it's like, what's that worth? Well, it's worth a lot because it's your life. And I think it's cool that they all go together, but that's what Warren Buffett showed us. I want to share with you a story, though. And this is the bonus secret. It has to do with making choices and how to bet. One day, Warren Buffett was playing golf. He's playing his golf game. And, one of the guys looked to Warren and said, Warren's about to line up a shot. And it wasn't a hard shot, but it was a pretty long putt. The kind of putt that if you're a golfer, you're probably not going to make, but you could. And maybe the guys on the PGA Tour could make it, but they wouldn't make it for sure, right? It's a pretty hard putt. And the guy looked at Warren and said, hey, Warren, how about we bet? And Warren said, I'm always interested in an investment. And he said, no, I just want to bet. So how about $20? I bet you $20 you won't make that shot. And Warren said, I'm almost guaranteed I won't make that shot. So the guy turns back as the story goes. No, I'll give you odds. Look, I know it's a hard shot. How about this? If you make it, I'll pay you $2,000. Okay. But if you miss, you pay me $20. 100 to 1. What do you say? It's an easy $2,000. And you know what? If not, you're only out $20. And Warren stopped and he looked at his friend. He smiled. He looked at his ball. He looked back at the hole, looked at the ball, looked at the hole, looked at the ball, looked back to his friend and said, no bet. And he aligned up and he hit it. And I think he put it in, I don't know if it was 3 or 2, but it certainly wasn't 1. And his friend was kind of incredulous. He said, Warren, what are you doing? I know it was tough, but come on, that's fun. And it was $20. Like, what's $20 for a chance to win 2,000? What's $20 for a chance to make $2,000? Plus, you're Warren Buffett. Like, what's the big deal? And this lesson has stuck with me really ever since I first heard it. Warren looked at his friend and said, how you play small is how you play when it's big. Or another way to say that is how you do anything is how you do everything. It's a very important lesson because we can learn a lot. And if you've heard this before, If you've heard a version of this before, it's easy to sweep it under the rug. Oh yeah. How you do everything's how you do everything. That's wonderful. Excuse me. But there's so much to learn from this. How, like, if before here, I'll give you a quick example from my life. Before I go into business with someone, if I'm going to do anything business-wise with them, I always want to see how they maintain their car. I want to see if their back seat is a soda and fast food graveyard, or is it clean and kept nice? I want to see how their desk is, because when you look at someone's desk, how you do anything is how you do everything. I think the desk is a direct representation of how we organize in our mind. Do you have stacks of sticky notes everywhere? So you got stacks of sticky notes in your brain. Or are things organized, taken care of? Do you, here's a note I have to do, and then I handle that and then it's done? Or do I put it off and put it off and put it off? How you do anything is how you do everything. And how you play small is how you play big. So I'm going to leave you with this and come back and have a conversation with Scott here. When you have a decision in your life, or when you have a chance to learn something, to engage or do something, but it seems like the stakes are small, that's the very time that you need to pretend as if it's the biggest stakes in the world. It's called discipline. And it's not a fun word to talk about, but it's the most important thing we can learn in life, I believe. One of the most important character attributes. And in the world of NLP, one of the things we do is we study and we model successful people. That's how we get these patterns. And one of the patterns of the most successful people in the world, podcasters included, business owners included, athletes included, parents included, relationships included, health included, is discipline. Successful couples who've been married for decades and decades, lovingly married, and still have sex and still enjoy each other's company and all that great stuff, they have a discipline to date nights, to spending time together, to not going to bed angry, things like that. You look at anyone who's fit, and healthy, they have a discipline to what they eat and how they move their body. And you look at any business owner who's successful, and they have a discipline to how they show up, and it starts with the small things. So I'm going to leave you with this one. If you feel like you're stuck in a rut, if you feel like you're not getting the success you want, you haven't gotten to where you need to be, try this. Find the smallest thing you can do in your life, from cleaning up the stickies off your desk, making your bed, doing the dishes before they get stacked up. Find something small and do it well. Like, Matt, what does making my bed have to do with anything? It has everything to do with it, because how you play small is how you play big. If you get up for the day and you think the day is worth getting up for, you'll get up, make the bed, and it's not about anything other than doing something small very, very well with excellence. And you make your bed. And then you go, you know what? I feel better about myself because I just did something good, and I brought more order to the chaos of the world in my life maybe. And then maybe you do something else that's quite nice, and you decide to put something else away. And then you make yourself a good breakfast. And pretty soon you're like, you know what? I do deserve to do some great things, and away we go. So with that said, Scott, I don't know how we want to handle. I want to give you guys something to dive into NLP. And this is kind of funky. I don't do this very often, but I made this just for you guys at Mass Media Summit. I want to give you, if you'd like to learn more about neuro-linguistic programming, I want to give you my entire NLP course manual. It's a 74-page color manual that I use with our live in-person certification courses. These are week-long courses where people pay thousands of dollars to go get certified in NLP. I want to give you the entire course manual, 74 pages, for free. No charge whatsoever. Just have it, take it, and you can get it right now.
Wow. Good stuff there. That's awesome, Matt.
Thanks, man. Should I tell them where to go?
Yeah. I've got the link here. I'll put this in the chat roll and in the description as well, too. But yeah, go ahead if you want to.
Put that in the chat. I made a really short, little, simple link. It's is.gd/Mass Media Summit, right?
That's right.
That's the one. Yeah. So again, www.is.gd/Mass Media Summit. Scott's going to put the link in the chat. If you go there, it's no strings attached. You put in an email so I can email it to you, obviously. But you go there and you're going to get the entire course manual for free. Check it out. Dive into NLP. Have some fun with it. And, follow me and hang. I'm a regular person, so follow me on any social media. I'm at Matt Brauning, Brauning. If you have a question, feel free to message me, ask a question. So stoked to be here. Scott, thanks for making the time, man. I appreciate this. Very excited to be on this, and I'm looking forward to seeing y'all down the road of NLP.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks so much for just playing full out. That's a great gift for everybody out there. Take advantage of it. And that's you said some really great things about doing little things, and I think that's one of the big things about where you talked about doing so well and then hitting rock bottom and being in Australia at the rock bottom side of things and coming back. I think we all have to grow, but we all have to get outside and do different things to really grow our shows, grow our exposure, and get to where we want to be, because it's all really, it's really, I think those that are experts and doing at the top of the game like you are, it's all been around about the journey, you know?
Every one of us has a journey, and look, you don't have to move into a trailer to be successful, even though it seems like every speaker has. But you know, it's like, you do have to have the moment when you decide that you're no longer going to be satisfied with the trailer. You know, you're no longer going to be satisfied doing the business you were doing if it's not making the impact you want. When you get no longer satisfied and you have the discipline to take new action, you're going to go into new places that you've never dreamed before.
So true, man. Well, thanks so much for coming and playing with us here at the Mass Media Podcast Summit. I look forward to seeing you somewhere. I know we're going to be, you're traveling some, I'm traveling some over the next few weeks and stuff like that. So look forward to hanging out with you, man. All right.
Yeah, looking forward to, Scott, one of my favorite people in the world. So thanks so much for having me on. See you soon.
See you here, buddy. Thanks. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this session of the Mass Media Summit. Take advantage of what Matt offered up. Get it, download it, put it to use. If you're wanting to really grow your audience, really attract the right type of people for your podcast, your show, start implementing what Matt was sharing here. Get it, take advantage of it, and trust me, you'll be amazed at the difference your show and your audience makes in your business and your life, and what you can do for them as well. So don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to take a short break and be right back.